How's it going? Welcome back, my wonderful wise ones, to another great video today as we are going to take a look at Lost Soul Aside. Now, not many people are discussing this game, in all honesty, which is kind of surprising considering it looks like a giant AAA game, but looks can be deceiving, as you may know. So this is actually more of a AA game, and it's made by a very small studio, which is very, very impressive, but I think that's why a lot of people aren't exactly giving it the attention it deserves, because basically it's a new studio to a degree, and yeah, this has been in the works for a very long time.
Shut up and take my money!
Now, when you see Lost Soul Aside, you might be thinking, okay, this is clearly just some kind of Final Fantasy ripoff, or you think it looks like a brand new, Final Fantasy game. Now, let me just say this, that the East, Japan, China, okay, they are absolutely just slaying Western game developers at this point. A lot of great games have recently come out from China, and of course Japan has always been great at making video games, and they're, the whole reason that we kind of have the RPGs that we love today in the West as well. But I just mean it's surprising that we're getting high quality games, from China as well, and it's not like these, copy and pasted mobile, kind of action hack and slash games. They're fully fleshed out, and I think everyone was kind of surprised with Black Myth Wukong. That kind of showed up Western developers a lot, if you ask me. And I think this is going to be another example of showing that we can have the AAA style of something like Final Fantasy, but on a smaller scale, and still have a lot of fun. And in fact, this might actually be better for some people, myself included, who don't like all of the bloat that Final Fantasy sometimes comes with. And especially if you're new to the lore, that can all be quite intimidating. This is a brand new IP, which is very refreshing to say in 2025, because God knows we need more creativity in video games. So I just want to highlight what this game is exactly, because I don't think it's going to get the attention it deserves, even if it's coming out on the PlayStation 5, on PC, and all that stuff. This is not a sponsored video or anything like that. I just thought it looks like an interesting game, so let's dive straight into it. So in this Lost Soul Aside review, I'm going to break down the positives and negatives like I do with all of my early access reviews, so you know straight away what the game's about and if it's actually worth shilling out money for. It's important to look at these games early, because you never know with modern day gaming what exactly it's gonna be once it's released. Marketing is one thing, the actual gaming experience is a completely different thing altogether today.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
So let's break it down into positives and negatives. But I do have to say that the art style is just very impressive. Yes, it's graphically, very pretty to look at, but art style to me is more important, and I think they've just done a fantastic job visually. It's using Unreal Engine 4. Now, I have to stress that I absolutely hate Unreal Engine with a passion.
Oh no, no, no.
It has destroyed so many great quality games simply because of it being, easy to use and very, developer friendly for new developers and stuff like that. And of course, visually pleasing if you want all games to look the same with no visual identity and them to run like goddamn a disabled hippopotamus. So, safe to say, I'm not a big fan of Unreal Engine, but it is using Unreal Engine 4, so it is slightly better, because it's the new engine that completely sucks and is destroying a lot of Western games at this point. And yeah, I could make a whole separate video about it, but I digress. Now, you might think that the combat kind of looks similar to Devil May Cry, and that's because, it is going for that kind of hybrid of a Souls-like mixed with much more focus on, action combat, character action combat like DMC, and a little bit more of, first Berserker, Kazan, that kind of style. Kind of think of it as a hybrid between a Souls-like and the new action-based Final Fantasy game, not so much as crazy as Devil May Cry, but combos are a massive thing in this game. So I do hope you enjoy this Lost Soul Aside review, and bear in mind that this is all based on the early access and based on the preview stuff that has already been released and what we can actually talk about. If you enjoy this content, make sure that you do subscribe to the channel because there's so many crazy games coming in September. Also some big news which you might already know about if you're a wise one already, but I'm going to Tokyo Game Show in September, as it's not that far from me, and I'm going to be covering a lot of brand new games there at the press event itself, not the public days. So I'm going to be able to get hands-on with tons of new games for next year as well. But this month is going to be crazy, so much content, so make sure you do subscribe if you're into gaming, deeper analysis, early reviews, and philosophical content. I blend them all together on this channel to give you something deeper with greater analysis. That is what this channel is all about, creating a movement. So check out the philosophical videos, the deeper analysis stuff, and if you're into the lighter side, then I've got you covered with early access reviews and simple game reviews. So if that sounds good to you, be an objective thinker, become a wise one, and subscribe. I would also appreciate full-time support, as I am trying to create this channel into a full-time thing, which is very difficult. So any support would be greatly appreciated. Becoming a member, getting access to all the live streams, which is starting up again, or simply dropping a thanks. There's also tons of members only videos. Anything, check out the music on Spotify. I appreciate it.
Shut up and take my money!
The first positive for this Lost Soul Aside review is simply looking at the combat. Okay, the combat itself is the main thing in this game. It is story focused, it is linear based, okay, so it's not an open world game if you're thinking that, and combat is usually down to these kind of very obvious arenas. And so there is a deep story here where you're basically trying to save someone that you love. Very typical stuff, but I like it. Reminds me of some of the best games in the past, like Shadow of the Colossus, but you're hopping between different dimensions, so there's a lot of different environments to explore. That's why the art style is crazy, but the combat is the main focus of this game. But a super cool thing that I just have to highlight, which is what they're showing off in all the promotional material, it's the arena powers, okay? And basically this is how you get around the levels, how you actually fight in combat and platform across different areas. Basically you have this shape-shifting ability, so you can literally run on the air. So you can literally run in the air, you can summon shields, you can use it for your weapons, you can actually use it for platforming as well. You can even summon a goddamn hoverboard, and that just has such great old school PS2 vibes, like Jak and Daxter and stuff like that. And I absolutely love that kind of crazy momentum and movement inside combat as well, not just outside of combat with platforming, but inside combat. That's what makes this game super cool, and the fact that it's all focused around combos, and combos actually mean something. You don't just get a high score, they actually impact your gameplay and how much damage you deal and all that kind of stuff. So basically you do have to worry about timing. It is a action focused game, but it does have a little bit more deliberation to the combat, like something in a Souls game. So you do actually have to focus on timing, and that really does matter. Again, everything that you do, if you perform it well, you get kind of a bonus to your actions, which is very nice, I think, and more games should do that in my opinion, instead of just giving you something that doesn't really impact the gameplay. Basically you have this fusion, merge, and blast effect, okay, and basically it depends on how much combos you're doing, you can, then unleash greater attacks and more abilities and stuff like that. So it really incentivizes you to play well. There is some variation and player choice as well with the weapons that you get to choose. You can go in heavy with a great sword, or you can be more light and nimble. I think there's 4 weapons, but there might be more as you progress in the game. Again, this is from the early access stuff. It is a early access review, so bear that in mind. But I do think that there is enough variation here because they all have their own skill trees, different abilities, and each one feels very distinct. So there's definitely different play styles, which is nice. I wouldn't say it's an RPG in the traditional sense, but there is player choice. Now, a few negatives, and that depends on who you are as a player, but like I said, there is some exploration here, but this is a AA experience, so expect more old school type gameplay, similar to old DMC games, where it's more you enter an arena and then you have to fight a bunch of different enemies. There's heavy cutscenes in this, so that's good if you love a single player, story focused game. But at times I have seen this where it kind of takes control away from you, so instead of doing the platforming yourself, it does it for you, and that can be a little bit disappointing at times. So that is kind of annoying, that it does take away player control from you at times. Instead of allowing you to do the platforming, it does it for you, and that's quite annoying. But those are kind of small nitpicks. You have to know that this is a linear, narrative focused game with character action. That's what this game is. It's not going to be a big grand open adventure where you can just go off and do your own thing. I'm just glad that more games like this are experimenting and they exist. AA games truly is what we need, to have deep story narratives that say something meaningful about the world around us, or, some philosophical ideas. These never really come from AAA games. It's very rare that they do. It's more the indie scene and the AA scene that allow this kind of experience. So we're just gonna have to wait and see what the story is all about, but I am excited for it. And I just love games that experiment with movement. I think the difficulty here is nice as well, because it's not, finely tuned like a Souls experience, but it can be difficult if you want to make it very difficult. There are times where it's a little bit bullet hell with the bosses and stuff like that, so there is a good amount of challenge, a nice progression, and, this feeling of being overpowered when you get to the end game and stuff like that, because there's so much with the customizations, and it's that type of character action game where it's all about flashy animations and stuff like that. So let me know what you think about Lost Soul Aside. I do hope you enjoyed this Lost Soul Aside review, but I do think that Western developers need to realize that, these games, they're focusing heavily on good gameplay, okay, gameplay first, and less, kind of the cinematic kind of movie games that Sony have been doing for a long time. And I think a lot of people are kind of craving that experience. I know I am. And if they blend that with deep, compelling narratives, then I think that's why so many people are interested in these games. But no one seems to be talking much about this. So let me know what you think about this Lost Soul Aside early review, and if you're going to pick it up or not. Like I say, always wait, never pre-order, but I do hope that this information helped you deciding if it was worth it. Those are the positives and negatives. Like I said, not too many negatives. Like I said, the performance, it seems to be good. Not too many negatives here. But until, we see the full story and just how repetitive the combat gets, it might not be an experience that you want to play forever. But I do think that it is doing something interesting and unique. And as long as it doesn't drag, then yeah, I think it's going to be a good time. So there you go. I'll be seeing you in the next video. Stay awesome and subscribe if you're new. Peace out.